On Earth, after 78 years, a silent film speaks 1,000 words, capturing the powerful moments U.S. troops rescued 2,500 Jewish prisoners from a Nazi death train in 1945. The footage was recently discovered and offers a glimpse into an all-too-important chapter of our history. NewsNation correspondent Rich McHugh has more.
The footage is silent, but it speaks volumes. And remarkably, in the past few days since this video has surfaced, some have scanned the faces in the footage and found their loved ones.
That made me kind of jump back and say, wow, there's my mom.
For the first time, we are seeing video of the moment U.S. troops saved thousands of Jews from a Nazi train. You see a little boy who looks well beyond his years, a woman exhausted, sleeping on the ground, tattered clothes, gaunt faces, people frantically lining up next to the train, hoping for their chance at some food from U.S. forces who had just secured their freedom. Some are waving to the cameraman. Written on one of the train cars, 3 cheers for the U.S. It was April 1945, and while the Farsleben train rescue had been captured in pictures like this, a mother and daughter newly freed from their captors, this is the first time video of the incident has been found, uncovered after 78 years.
The U.S. Army Signal Corps happened to have a photographer in the area and happened to film this.
Mike Edwards is the director of A Train Near Magdeburg, a forthcoming film about the miraculous rescue.
A death train that left Bergen-Belsen near the end of the war, having 2,500 passengers on it, and was liberated on April 13th, 1945 by the United States Army. 2,500 people is 2.5 times the size of Schindler's List, and it was liberated in a single moment.
Thousands of prisoners of the Nazi regime, Jews from all over war-torn Europe, suddenly realized they were free. Elizabeth Siemens saw her mother's face in the footage.
It was just so surprising and so amazing to me, and that I actually recognized my mother there. I had not expected that, and it was just wonderful, really, really a wonderful surprise.
For Siemens, it's a powerful surprise and an important reminder 8 decades later.
People do need to remember the atrocities that occurred there, not with any sense of vengeance or revenge or hatefulness or anything like that, but to do the best they can to relate well to others, people who are different from themselves, and to care about humanity one-on-one and encounter everyone with a sense of love and good expectations.
Nazi trains, if you look at photographs of trains in the Holocaust, most of them, if not all of them, lead to death. This one leads to life.
For News Nation, Rich McHugh.
Joining us now is the historian who unearthed this footage, Matthew Rozell. Matthew, thank you so much for joining us and sharing that footage with the world. It is impossible not to look at that and not get emotional. I can only imagine what it was like for her to see her mother after all these years, and because she knew the story, and then to see this footage and identify her mother in the crowd, all because you took the time to restore this. Just talk to me. What made you do this, Matthew? What made you take the time to do this, and why did you feel the need to share it with the world?
Well, hi, Nick. Thanks for having me. Well, I was a high school history teacher in upstate New York. And for the second half of my career, 30-year career, I started an oral history project. So I sent my students into the community. We interviewed World War II veterans when they were still very plentiful and here with us. And in July 2001, I sat down with an 80-year-old retired New York State Supreme Court justice who had been a tank commander fighting after Normandy, after D-Day, through the Battle of the Bulge, and then finally up crossing the Rhine River into Nazi Germany. They were going 18 hours a day. So I sat down, we talked for 2 hours, and I was about to shut the camera off, and his daughter said, "Dad, did you tell Mr. Rozell about that train?" And he thought for a minute, he said, "No, I didn't." And he said it was a beautiful April day. Well, me and another tank, we were called out of the tank column April 13th, 1945. We were on our way to fight a final battle at the city of Magdeburg, and we had these civilians in the way, and they were in distress. So he and another tank commander, the other tank commander had pictures. They actually liberated the train. So he told me the story. We put it on our school website. It sat there for 4 years, not much action, the pictures, the stories. And I heard from a grandmother in Australia who'd been a 7-year-old girl on the train. And after that, we heard from many more.
Wow. Just because you put it out there and then say, well, wait a minute, I know that's me. And so it was like it was literally like a unraveling of a piece of cloth or something there.
Yeah, it just went on and on. For the next 15 years, we heard from almost 300 survivors. Many of them were children. There were a lot of families on this train. And you can see from the photographs and now this footage, they were distressed. And these American GIs stepped up and they helped and they literally saved the day.
Matthew, have you spoken with anyone in the video or their family members since you uncovered it? And what have they told you directly?
Well, we went to Israel working on a film called The Train Near Magdeburg. It's based on my book. And we interviewed 12 survivors. One of them is a very famous poet, Yaakov Barzilai. And he was astounded because he saw himself, his 4-year-old sister, and his mother. And he started to cry. So we've heard from 6 people who have seen themselves or their family, including Elizabeth, who was just on, since the footage basically was put out about a week ago.
Matthew, I love this. I think the last thing I saw was a piece about that museum that they're gathering where people get to tell their stories. Different survivors are telling their stories in AI, and it locks in that audio. Why do you think it's important to take the time to find these lost pieces of history and gather it so that people can see it to the public?
Well, as we know, sadly, the rise in anti-Semitism, it never seems to go away. The only tool is education. And by finding this newly found footage in the National Archives, 3.5 minutes, you can see what our GIs went through, being pushed and swarmed by starving people as they're trying to help them. Our guys are traumatized. So Americans need to know, they need to take pride in what these American soldiers did. They didn't have to stop, they didn't have to rescue, but they wound up healing the world. And by bringing these people together 70 plus years later, it's just an amazing story. We have a film that's coming out on ITV Studios next year, 4-part miniseries, A Train Near Magdeburg. And it's going to tell this very powerful story that resonates with us today. We cannot forget. But first, we have to learn about the horrors of the Holocaust and what our American soldiers went through.
Matthew, when you are ready to promote that movie, you have a space and an open invitation here at News Nation. When I tell you, I loved everything about this. Matthew, thank you so much. Matthew, where can we see it if we want to see this video in its entirety?
You can go to teachinghistorymatters.com. That's my website blog. I've been keeping it for 15 years. And the colorized stills are there. The video is there. And please do. We want to hear from more soldiers and more families who see themselves in it.
Matthew, thank you so much.
Thank you, Nick. Appreciate it.